So thank you for being here this morning. This is our 9 o'clock update on the 117 fire. Speaking today will be Sheriff Elder as the incident commander, Commissioner Glenn, and Commissioner Gonzalez. So without further ado, Sheriff.
Good morning, everybody. I'll report that the 117 fire is about 41,000 acres. It is still growing. We've got active fire on both the southern and northern flanks that we're addressing. We have some air support from Fort Carson, and we're requesting state air support here in a little bit to help us with that. We have roughly 10 structures that were destroyed, and a number of outbuildings and some vehicles that are there. We've got some livestock injuries, but at this point we don't believe that there is any other human injuries that we've been notified of. We're continuing to address the issues. On the eastern edge of this is another fire that started on the very eastern edge of El Paso County yesterday before this fire. It's roughly 5,000 acres. It stretches into Lincoln County and touches the edge of Crowley County. I've spoken with both of those sheriffs, and they know that we're going to complex this fire, meaning we're going to bring them all together under the state authority. So we're going to do that sometime around noon. We're going to hand off the incident command to this fire to the state. It is in at least a manageable stage right now, so that's why we're attacking it as hard as we can. We are expecting 40-mile-an-hour winds out of the south this afternoon, which will give us some issues to deal with from that northern piece of the fire. I feel pretty good about where it is this morning based on what we were looking at yesterday and the speed of the fire that traveled yesterday. So next I'll introduce Commissioner Lojinos Gonzalez.
Thank you, Sheriff. I'm the resident commissioner here in District 4, and so to start off, I'd just like to thank all the firefighters, our regional partners, and the volunteers who are combating the fire or helping those in need. Our thanks go out to them. Although we have yet to fully tally the damages lost, we know that it's hardest on those who have had to flee their homes, and so our prayers are with them and the firefighters out there. I wanted to reassure our residents that the county is here for them, but also that this is more than just a county effort. Over 200 firefighters were on the lines yesterday and continuing through today from around the region and the state, and so again our thanks go out to them. I did want to put out a phone number to residents. The county opened a call-in line, and that phone number is 719-575-8888 if you have questions or need additional information. Also, I did want to put out that the Red Cross opened an evacuation center last night, and that will remain open until no longer needed. And that evacuation center is located at 500 West Alabama Street in Fountain. So once again, I wanted to thank all those that have been participating in combating this fire and supporting those in need. And also ask all residents to be safe out there and to please heed all warnings and notices by the sheriff and the incident commanders. Thank you. And I will introduce now our County Commission President, Darrell Glenn.
I just want to thank everybody. This is a tough time. Our community has been through this in the past, but we need to again remember that it's time to rally together. I just want to reassure you from the county's perspective, our focus is making sure that we're providing our first responders with the appropriate tools, training, and equipment necessary to be able to do their jobs. We've already executed the appropriate paperwork to be able to leverage state and federal resources. Our plan is to make sure that we're bringing a whole bunch of agencies together to be able to identify areas where we can work together to make sure that our first responders are able to take care of our citizens here. I want to reassure you that we will get through this. I want you to understand that this is a perfect opportunity to have a conversation with your family. We are heading into a very aggressive fire season, and we want to make sure that if you can do things to mitigate around your home, you need to do that. We also want to make sure that you have a plan in the event that you have to evacuate. that you're able to do that. Again, the county is bringing all the resources to bear. We have multiple agencies working together. I want to thank all of our first responders, and I personally want to thank you as a community. You know, this is going to be a long effort, but we will get through this together.
Okay, with that, we will open it up for some questions. So,
Sheriff, any idea when the evacuees will be able to go home?
We've actually, we're letting some go back in there. We're not holding everybody out like we have in the past. The size and scope of this thing is way too big. So there's several people that have moved back towards their homes. And I think that that's perfectly fine as long as they're paying attention to what's going on around them. We get those the winds that out of the south today. A lot will depend on how we were able to knock down the fire on the northern flank. If that fire gets blown back north, we could have additional evacuations. So I just want people to remain vigilant to the warnings that we're throwing out there.
So which area can people head back towards?
You know, most of it is just we're patrolling it, just watching for it. We're not holding everybody out. Most of the homes that are in the burn area in the black are safe at this point. The fire burned around them, so it's only burning on the outskirts. There's really not much around it to burn anymore. The grass is gone. Some of the homes have got some structures that we're working on. We're putting some water on now. I think that anywhere in this huge swath of probably 40 miles east and 10 to 15 miles wide, anywhere in there is probably fairly safe to be at this point.
Of the 10 structures that have burned, how many of those were people's houses?
All of them.
All of them?
Yeah, they're all. And a couple of them look a little damaged, but the majority of them, they're gone. So.
Can you talk about some of the challenges that firefighters faced last night? Any of the conditions, or it just seemed like it was fairly dangerous out there.
It was. We had 50-foot flames moving at 35 miles an hour yesterday. It covered that distance in from here to I don't know. It covered a distance of 35 miles in about 2 hours. It was flying through there. What happened is it was moving so quickly as we were trying to evacuate people. We were getting trapped. We had a fire engine that didn't get destroyed, but it got burned. A couple of firefighters had some smoke inhalation. We lost a patrol car yesterday, just trying to get people through there. A couple of minor injuries, but the issue was that 60-mile-an-hour winds and trying to get ahead of that to evacuate people. Then we had to send in people to evacuate first responders. So that was a problem.
And what about some of the dust? It seems like there was low visibility.
It was mostly smoke because of the wind. It was holding the smoke down tight to the ground. It did make some visibility issues. We were actually far more concerned about the flames and the speed of those flames. I had one deputy report to me. It was 35 miles an hour eastbound on Hanover Road, and the flames were actually going faster than he was. That's fast.
Sheriff, you mentioned the winds didn't allow for air assets yesterday,
Right.
to allow today.
Right. Yeah. Yesterday, with those kinds of winds, we couldn't put any air assets in the air, including the multi-mission aircraft that tell us where the hot pieces of this fire were. Right now, we've got we're fairly calm. We've got a lot of air assets. Right now, we've got 5 helicopters from Fort Carson, which is a big deal. 2 of them are Chinooks that are hitting the northern flank with water. Those hold roughly 10,000 gallons per bucket. We've got some dip spots in the fire that are helpful. We've got 3 Blackhawks that are hitting the southern flank right now, and we're waiting for a couple of heavy tankers from the state to come down and help us paint that southern flank.
Are there any assets coming in from outside of Colorado?
Yeah.
I think I saw a private agency from Missoula.
We've got some. The state is bringing in assets from South Dakota, North Dakota, and Montana to help us. Right now, it's not. It doesn't appear during the flyover that there's a huge amount of risk. We just got to stop it before that fire, before the winds pick up. That's our biggest concern at this point.
Is it still 0% containment?
You know, I would say that until we get a good handle on the size. I would hate to give us any kind of containment on this at all.
Yesterday it appeared that there were several big plumes. It looked like several
Well, there's actually two fires. They're about 8 miles apart. The eastern fire, the Edison fire, is pretty well inactive at this point. They're in mop-up operations. That will become part of this fire as a complex fire here pretty quickly. The big smoke plumes you were seeing yesterday were the structures that were on fire. There's a couple of hay stacks that also burned out that created a number of vehicles that created some of that darker smoke.
Were any livestock lost?
We believe there probably was. We have not had a complete assessment yet. We're still trying to figure out. We're still trying to address all of those flame fronts at this point.
Are we still at 10 structures?
Right now, it looks like 10 structures. We have nothing to indicate anything more than the 10 structures.
How are the first responders that went to the hospital for injuries?
They're okay. They're being treated for smoke inhalation. Right now they're fine. And in fact, I think they're out. I haven't talked to the chief about them this morning, but I think they're out.
Was it 4 altogether?
I don't know. I don't know that. I think there were only 2. Am I right? Because there were 2. 2 that were both from Hanover Fire.
I've been hearing on the scanner some chatter about issues with like a propane tanks around the houses and a propane supply something.
Yeah, Edison Propane has a storage facility, a storage place out in Edison that we were concerned with. When that fire was racing east yesterday at high speed, we were concerned about it involving that Edison propane storage. It didn't make it that far. Thank God the wind shifted to the south, which pulled it away from that. We would have had a whole different story if it would have got to that propane facility.
When the winds are shifting north, south, east, just every couple minutes, how hard does that make for you guys to track the fire?
Yeah, it made it near next to impossible to do that, mainly because we were trying not to put people right in the middle of the fire, and then it would shift on them. And so we had no air assets. We had no multi-mission aircraft to give us a direction and a speed of the fire. So it was because we have some really talented, some really dedicated fire personnel throughout this community that it is down to what it is. We protected a ton of properties, and we've got assets from, you can see, all the way from Vail, you name it. We've got assets in the community here working. So.
Do you think it'll be days before it's out completely?
No, I don't think so. I think that we've got a pretty good grip on where it's burning now and how it's burning. I think we've got the right numbers of people here. We've got the right assets ordered. I think we can put some serious attention to it before the wind picks up. I think by tonight we'll have a pretty good grip on what's going on, and then we can start some mop up and recovery operations.
So how many firefighters do you have on the ground today now?
Boy, I couldn't even begin to guess. I'll tell you, I'm going to take a wild shot at 400. How many? 200? Okay, we had 300 and some last night, so we're down to maybe 200 today when we relieve the night shift.
Okay. What do you hope to accomplish today?
I hope to put this thing out. No, that is hoping. I'm hoping to get it contained, to get those 2 flanks controlled. We're still 10 miles away from the Pueblo Chemical Depot. That's a good thing. That was a worry last night until the wind slowed down. So, I'd love to be able to choke that southern flank off and direct all the resources we can to the northern flank. Be able to bring some of our firefighters back out of Lincoln County to help us on the eastern end, and I think that we can get some control of this thing.
Any idea how many different agencies are out there with
If you can name it in El Paso and Pueblo and Lincoln counties, they're on it.
There are at least 10.
Yeah, they're on it, and I mean it's, Fort Carson has committed a ton of resources to us, and that has been a huge help. Just the flyover this morning gave us a really good look at where the active flames are, where the dip points are for water resources. We've already been able to secure agreements with the landowners to use that water. So we're blessed to have the resources that Fort Carson brings to the fight.
Will they be deploying those resources tomorrow too?
It depends on where we are. It depends a lot on where we are with the fire. Right now, they're holding off any range fires so that they can leave resources here. Otherwise, if they're practicing downrange, they have to leave fire resources on post to do that. So the general graciously stopped their their training exercises today, and they've moved all of their resources to our fire. That's a
They
big
don't
deal.
start getting new
Yeah,
ones.
that's a big deal.
I don't want to, resort to any hyperbole or alarmism, but this is the second major evacuation we've had in like a month and a half. Going into summer, what are some of the fears that this is kind of a norm? I don't want to say normal, but
Well, I think when you look at the fire, the dry conditions we've got, when you look at the lack of moisture, snow and rain that we've had so far, when you look at the probability that along this interstate that we're going to create an issue that starts a fire, this could go on all summer long. The interesting piece is we're running out of stuff to burn on the south end of the county. This is a tough season. We've got a lot of resources. We've got a lot of committed fire departments and a lot of committed personnel, and I think we're blessed to have that. But people have got to know: don't throw cigarettes out the window. Secure chains off of trailers. Those chains create sparks when they bounce on the pavement, and that starts fires. We don't know what caused this, but it started right along the interstate. So, and it creates a big issue. We stopped trains yesterday for a long period of time. That has backup effect on all of the train traffic. So
basically, we can tell people that it's up to them if they want to go home today.
yeah, we're not going to try and stop them. That just
mandatory.
yeah, it's not mandatory, but people got to be awake. Like I said, we lost 10 structures. We'll do the best we can, but we still have active fires in the northern and southern flanks of this thing, and people need to be aware that if the weather conditions shift, it will create a hazard, and it's a hazard for us to come out and evacuate you. So stay awake.
So when it comes down to fire mitigation for people in the path of the fire, if a wind shifts, what can they do now to prevent any spread or help compete against the fire?
Like mitigation, they just need to not do that today. They need to be prepared to move. They don't. I don't even know what to tell you at this point.
Sheriff, again, I just wanted to highlight one of the great concerns that I've had for the last several months, even before the last fire, was because of the dry, mild winter that we had, was a dangerous fire season. So I'm highlighting as often as I can to the public for people to be fire safe, and the county, the sheriff did implement a stage 2 fire restrictions, and so I did. I don't know if the sheriff wanted to highlight that, but I did want to highlight that we're in stage 2 fire restrictions for the county. So please heed that and be safe out there. So I don't know if you want to highlight that.
Yeah, so we talked about that a little bit last night about stage 2. That is no outdoor burning at all. No outside fires, no barbecues. If it's not something that is very well contained, we don't need it outside. While it feels safe right now with little wind, it's going to come back, and we just need to be prepared until we get moisture.
How come the stage 2 fire restrictions weren't put in place before the fire started?
They're really, until that fire kicked off yesterday morning, there was not enough to restrict it. It has a much bigger effect with builders and construction and issues like that it makes it tough to put those in place. This stage 2 restrictions would not have stopped this fire. We haven't figured out the cause, but I'm going to take a guess that something off of the interstate is what triggered this one. Stage 2 restrictions are going to hamper people in incorporated cities a whole lot more than they're going to stop a fire like this one.
So you're pretty confident this fire was started by human error?
Well, it's almost, I don't want to say human error, but I mean, it could have been a chain dragging off a trailer. It could have been a cigarette. It could have been a number of different things. Once we get this thing out, we get a chance to go back to where the point of origin is and determine the cause, or attempt to determine the cause, and we'll know more. Okay.
One last thing that I do want to point out, the county and the sheriff's office is going to be re-implementing the Ready, Set, Go 3-phase program, if you will. and we just tweeted that out. You can encourage your viewers and followers to go to that. It will give tools and information that they can use for the ready, the pre-evacuation, the set, and then the go when they actually have to evacuate. But that is for all natural disasters, tornadoes, flooding, fires. So encourage them to go to that, make themselves aware, especially as we head into this very dry summer season. So with that, thank you for coming. We will have our next update at noon, and it will